the 16th of March 2023. Just as a reminder that this meeting is being live streamed. So with that, we will go on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. Kenna, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Piccolo for this evening, and he's being substituted by Councillor Mays.
Okay, thank you very much. And obviously on the substitutes, Councillor Mays went on the Planning Committee recently, so we'll obviously have that updated for the minutes in the next meeting, yeah? Okay, thank you. Okay, item 2, minutes found on pages 5 to 8. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? No? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, so items of urgent business. I've not agreed to any items of urgent business. Obviously, we do have a planning committee meeting on April the 6th, and we do obviously have a date for April the 27th, depending on if there's anything overhanging. That is 3 weeks away, April the 6th, so that agenda will be finalised tail end of last week, or tail end of next week. If there's anything obviously on there that members would like to do a site visit, please feel free, welcome to ask. Okay, with that, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
Not from me, Chair.
No? No, none from me. And declarations of receipt of correspondence. I don't think I've had anything. Councillor Arnold, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I think I might have just got that slightly wrong. I've actually got an interest that I'd like to just bring to committee if I can, please.
Yep, certainly. So that's item 4, yeah?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've spoken to several residents recently in Fobbing. I've not commented or given any opinion regarding the solar farm application, and I'd just like to point out as well, Councillor Deborah Arnold is the ward councillor for Fobbing, and speaking to the committee later on item 9. For transparency purposes, I feel that I need to declare that she is my wife. Councillor Deborah Arnold and I are fully understanding of the members' code of conduct regarding planning, and are professional enough that I do not feel predetermined on item 9 in any way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. No further declarations of interest. And declarations of receipt of any correspondence was, I don't think, no, quite a month. Okay, excellent, thank you. All right then, that then takes us on to planning appeals found on pages 9 to 20. Lee, do you have any questions, or do we have any questions for Lee? Any comments there? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Reports for noting, but happy to field any questions. Thank you.
Okay, no further questions there. And then item 7, obviously that's a public address to the Planning Committee, which allows us to discuss our 3 items on the agenda. The first item is item 8, so that's 22/01596/CV, land at far east of Stanhope Industrial Park, found on pages 21 to 52. This was subject to a call-in to the Planning Committee. And with that, Lucy, if you'd be so kind as to present your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think Kenna's in control, isn't she? Right, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, this application is for amendments to the layout, design of a previously approved application for a gas-fired electricity generation facility. This is a material amendment and requires variation of condition numbers 2, which is the approved plans, 4, which is noise assessment, and 5, ecology of the original planning permission. Okay, so this is the site layout plan. So the site is this kind of nearly triangular site, which is located to the eastern end of Stanhope Industrial Park, which comprises a mix of commercial, employment generation uses. The site comprises a roughly triangular, as I said, shaped land parcel, which is just over 0.5 of a hectare in area. The site is in an allocated secondary industrial and commercial area within the core strategy. Okay, this is an aerial photograph of the whole of Stanhope Industrial Park, and the site is in this corner here. And then this is the site closer up. So the proposed site plan shows the amended layouts of the gas engines, with the gas engines in the north of the site. And this is the site layout as was previously approved. So you can see that the gas engines covered a much larger area in footprint. And this is the proposed elevations of the engines with the flues up to, I think it's just over 14 metres. And this shows the elevations as previously approved. So the application seeks permission for amendments to the approved scheme, which necessitate changes to the wording of conditions number 2, 4 and 5. These wording changes are detailed in paragraphs 6.4 to 6.18 of the officer report. So I've set out what the condition was on the approved application and the wording of exactly what it's changed to now. So the changes are due to advances in technology since the application was first submitted. And the changes are considered to be acceptable as they would result in less ecological impact than the approved scheme due to the smaller footprint. And so the proposal would not result in any additional environmental impacts beyond those already considered in the original application. So to conclude, the recommendation is to approve with conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that detailed report there, Lucy. So I'll open it up to questions if there are any. I'll start just very briefly. So this was a call-in. Obviously, there was some concerns raised there around noise amenity, air quality, etc. And obviously, we know historically there's always been concerns surrounding Wolf Road. I'm not sure if it's a question for yourself, Junior, but we're quite comfortable that those areas have been looked at in detail. Thank you.
Okay, so this site it's at the opposite end of the eastern end of the industrial park, and it doesn't lead to any increase in HGV movements or anything like that past the properties in Wharf Road. So this is more like an ecology, noise type issues. I don't know if you want to.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I mean, there will be construction vehicles that will be part of the construction works, obviously, that will bring in the turbines. Obviously, you can see the number, it would appear that the number of turbines is decreasing, so therefore the potential is there may be less vehicular traffic. That traffic will be temporary after that. That literally it will be servicing of them or turning them on whenever, so you're probably talking 1 or 2 movements every month maybe if you're lucky, and there'll be vans or something similar. They won't be large vehicles, so the impact will be minimal once the construction works have been undertaken.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions there? Okay, no, it doesn't look like there's any further questions. We do have a speaker here this evening, and this is a speaker statement of support. That's from Heather Lindley Clapp, and Kenna, I understand she'll be joining us through Teams. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so Heather, if you're with us, if you could be so kind as to present your statement of support, and you have 3 minutes in which to do so. Thank you. Please go when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to address the committee this evening. My name is Heather Lindley Clapp, and I am speaking on behalf of my client in respect to the proposal before you. The proposal has been thoroughly considered by your officers, and we agree wholeheartedly with the conclusions and positive recommendations set out in the officers' report. The application seeks to vary an extant approval, which was consented in August 2022, for a standby electricity generation plant to be called on by the national grid at times of high demand. The revised scheme is submitted in order to take advantage of technological changes and requirements, including an overall reduction in the number of engines that are proposed. This application is supported by a full suite of technical documents, including an air quality assessment that confirms that the air quality impacts of the revised scheme are lower than the previously approved scheme. The positive comments from environmental health officers confirm this. In respect of ecology, the Council's own officer has confirmed that the revised scheme will have positive effects on ecology due to the decrease in the footprint of the engines, which enables more habitat mitigation to be provided. Concerning highways, the access arrangements remain as approved in August 2022. These arrangements were considered acceptable by highways officers and will remain as approved. In summary, the amended scheme constitutes an update to a previous approval and allows for ecological gains and reduced air quality impacts, whilst maintaining the approved highways and access arrangements. Thank you for your time today, and we hope you will support this proposal in accordance with the officer's recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that statement there. So with that, unless there's any further questions, we'll now move on to debate. If anyone would like to debate this particular item. No comments? No? Nothing there? Okay, no. So, I mean, looking at it, obviously, it looks like a very impressive parcel of infrastructure. I think the report's been very well put together. And, you know, for me, looking at the recommendations set out on page 31, which is for approval, is something that I'll be pushing for. Is that seconded? Quickly, Councillor Shinnick. If you're happy with that, Lee, we'll go to the vote. Okay, so all those in favour of agenda item 8, land at far east of Stanhope Industrial Park, please raise your hands. Agreed. Yep. That's unanimous, yeah. Okay, fantastic. So with that, we can say that agenda item 8 has been agreed. Thank you everyone for your time on that application. And with that, that then takes us on to our second item here this evening, which is item 9. That's 21/01635/FUL, land south of Marsh Farm, Marsh Lane, found on pages 53 to 100. And Lucy, I understand this is another one of your reports. When you're ready, please present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Okay, this application is for full planning permission for installation of a renewable-led energy generation station comprising ground-mounted photovoltaic solar arrays and battery-based electricity storage containers, together with substation, inverter, transformer stations, site access, internal access tracks, security measures, access gates, and other ancillary infrastructure alongside a grid connection cable, and also landscaping and biodiversity enhancements. The application is a cross-boundary application, although the much larger part, which has got all the solar panels in, is within Thurrock. And there's a grid connection which is mostly within Basildon. It actually culminates within Rochford, just within Rochford at Rayleigh substation. By way of updates, since the report was published, Rochford Council have responded confirming that they've got no objections, and they're the following changes to the conditions within the report. So on condition 2, removal of the final plan that's quoted there, as the planning agent said, that was just for information. Condition 5, to not restrict the construction to 30 weeks. as the number of HGVs are already restricted within condition 8. Contaminated land is also, there's 2 condition 13s, so it should be 12. And condition 10, the ecological management plan should read waterbird mitigation land, not migration land. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So this is the site location plan. The application site comprises 10 adjoining arable fields, mainly within fobbing marshes, and is low-lying. The Thurrock site area is approximately 134 hectares, with access from Fobbing High Road. Approximately 1.5 kilometres to the south is the port and industrial complex of Corryton Refinery and DP World, and then it's the Thames estuary. The site is characterised as Grade 3B within the agricultural land classification, and parts of public footpaths 14 and 199 run within the site. The site is mainly within flood zone 3A, and the site is greenbelt. This is an aerial photograph of the site, and the site is central within this. This is the proposed layout. So the kind of turquoise are the solar panels, with the red line, the wider site. So this is the proposed solar panels. So there's elevation here. So the maximum height of the solar panel is 3 metres, and they track the path of the sun from east to west. So this shows the landscape and ecology measures which the proposal incorporates. This includes new hedgerows, new woodland and grassland planting, and some quite significant buffers for ecological areas. So there's RSPB site to here and Essex Wildlife Trust site to kind of adjoining there. So this is within the application. It needed an environmental statement, and as part of that, the landscape and visual effect of the proposal was scoped into that, and I thought the best way to try and show visually the effect was to take some of these viewpoints and then show you photos of before and after. So there's going to be a photo montage from this point, which is viewpoint 2, viewpoint 3, which is here, and viewpoint 4, which is there. So this is viewpoint 2, which is along public footpath 199, and viewing centrally from the viewpoint. So this is existing, and then this is a photo montage of the proposed view with, so the solar panels are kind of mid in the photo. Hope that's clear. And then this is viewpoint 3, which is from public footpath 14, taking the left viewpoint. So you can see DP World in in the background. So this is existing. Oh, wrong way. And then this is the proposed. So what the panels would appear like when you are on that footpath. Then, and then viewpoint 4 is Marsh, from Marsh Lane and the path down there, and this is a central viewpoint, and then this is, so the solar panels you can see in the background. And with these photos, I think it's important to, so this is as is now, whereas the proposal, there's a lot of landscaping which is proposed. Okay, the site is within Greenbelt and would not fall within one of the exceptions to inappropriate development as set out in the MPPF and local policies. Therefore, it would result in inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, which is by definition harmful to openness. The applicant has advanced circumstances that would amount to very special circumstances that overcome this type of proposal. There were 12 factors towards very special circumstances which were put forward, which are assessed from paragraph 6.27 onwards within the planning report. So these include increasing renewable energy generation, energy security, temporary reversible impacts, farm diversification, amongst others. So the balancing exercise is summarised in the table and paragraph 6.54 of the report. It's considered that significant weight should be attached to the benefits of providing renewable energy, including the reduction in carbon emissions. The temporary nature of the development attracts some weight, and weight can also be attached to the economic, social and environmental benefits of the proposals. On balance, it's concluded that on this point, the benefits of the proposals clearly outweigh the substantial harm to Greenbelt described above, and therefore a departure from normal Greenbelt policies is justified. The application required an environmental impact assessment, which included the matter of landscape and visual impacts. The landscape and visual impact are assessed within paragraph 6.57 to 670 of the report. The conclusions are that whilst the landscape quality is high, the mitigation measures would be acceptable and there would be enhancement to the ecological value of the site. Okay, to summarise, the development is inappropriate development within the Greenbelt, and the factors put forward amount to very special circumstances which outweigh the harm of the proposal. There are no objections to the proposals on grounds of amenity, heritage, flood risk or highways with appropriate conditions. So to conclude, the recommendation is to approve the application for the reasons set out in paragraph 7.1 to 7.3 of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. Thank you for that very detailed report there. That now opens us up to questions. Who would like to start? First of all, Councillor Watson, then Steve Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your report. Can I just ask a couple of questions on this? First of all, in 1.4 of your report, it's saying that approximately 16,100 family homes will have this energy. Can you tell me where? Because this goes across to Basildon as well. So where would this energy be going? Would it just be for Thurrock, or are we also going to be having the brunt of all of the solar panels in our area for Basildon to actually have the electric?
Yeah, the electricity just goes into the national grid, so there's no way of knowing exactly what homes specifically are going to be benefiting from.
Okay. Can I ask one? I've got slight concerns about the substation, about the size of it. as well as I've got concerns about the whole entire of the, how many solar farms, how many football pitches are this? It looks at least about 10. They're quite high, the substation. It's about, is it, you were just saying? It's quite long and it's 35 foot long and it's quite high. Have we done any consultation with any of the residents in that area on how they feel about this substation being there and how they would have like designed all the heritage part of it as well? Because I'm pretty sure that Steve at the end is going to have a conversation about the economic, the environmental side of stuff. So is there any consultation been done on the residents about this? And that's quite a big substation. And I will say this, and I'll keep saying this, is about how safe is that battery that's sitting in there, because that's a massive battery that's sitting within that substation.
Okay, I'll try and take those points kind of separately to keep them clear. So in terms of consultation, yeah, widely consulted by individual letter to neighbours, and due to the nature of the application, made sure that not over consult, but to make sure it was a wide area, as well as site notices which were within the site along the footpaths, so for people who don't actually live near to, and press adverts too. So yes, residents have been consulted. On the size of the substation, I know they kind of put in worst case scenario with applications such as this. As with the first application, technology is always kind of moving forward. So I believe it was 20, it's like a container which is 20 metres, but it's not that high in height or width. So in feet, oh. Sorry, Councillor Watson. Oh, so, yeah, so I was mistaken, it's 11 metres, so it's about 30, 33, 35? 35 metres in feet, sorry. And height-wise, about 12 foot. And also the battery issue, well, the battery question. So government is really pushing kind of battery storage full stop, and these connect up to national grid, obviously, and the standards which the applicant or the developer has to meet to connect up to national grid are high, so like covered under other legislation, the safety aspect. So we do consult the fire brigade now, but unfortunately we don't get a response.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the report, condition 16 sets out the requirement for a detailed battery safety management plan. And I think that actually came about, that condition, from previous concerns that the Council's Planning Committee had around safety of batteries. So that's been consistently recommended on these types of applications. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a few names here. So first of all, Steve Taylor, Councillor Arnold, Polly, then Shinnick. So Steve Taylor, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Lucy, for the report. And Councillor Watson wasn't completely off target. In fact, she was pretty much bang on, which is what I was going to ask about. So I think the transformers that you're referring to, the substation is going to be the one at Rayleigh on the junction of the 130 A127-ish. There's a big substation there. That's obviously where they're connected to. So the cable's going to go through from this site to there. That's from, I think, what you've said. So my first question is, the battery storage, is that the black area on the plan that's kind of in blue? Well, it's on a couple of them, I think. There's a sort of black area that's sort of just above the middle of the site, sort of black boxes. That's it. What you go, if you, that one you were onwards, right, see the black, that's it there. Is that where the battery storage is proposed?
Yes, so the kind of substation on the site and the battery store, whatever you call it, transverter, informer type thing, yeah, they are in one area, which is, yeah, the black area.
Okay, thanks, Lucy. I assumed that's where they were. So they're on the side of the site that's actually nearest to the housing. And some of you might recall that I brought up a year or so ago, or about a year ago, about the issue that was in the national press about batteries and fires, where they basically, if they catch fire, they go through a process where the heat makes the fire bigger and bigger and bigger, and the fire brigade don't have a way of dealing with it. So what worries me a great deal is that this is probably for debate, but the fire brigade haven't responded. So that battery site, or which are basically a series of containers, visually they're sort of 40-foot containers, I guess. Is that where the connection is going from to Rayleigh? Do we know? I'm guessing it's kind of got to.
Yes, yeah, that's where the connection starts.
So it would come up and into the high road, presumably.
Yeah, where you're seeing this as well, aren't you? Yeah. So where the red line, the reason it doesn't kind of stop when it meets public highway is because where the cable is proposed to be needs to be within the red line too. So it follows
and then
follows
that
red
road
line
through
and then
into Basildon.
And then this is the whole red line. So the borough, our Thurrock borough boundary is the orange, and then the red line.
Yeah. Okay. From questions point of view, that's fine. Thank you. That's what I thought it was, but I couldn't kind of quite deduce from the plans. Yeah, I read that one, and I still couldn't work out where those elements were. So, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So that then takes us on to Councillor Arnold. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, I'm going to just bring a little bit of attention on actually to the site access now. It's going to be an obvious question, I think. Yeah, obviously, currently it's going to be coming off of the high road. Has the question ever been asked why that wouldn't come off of the A13? I think it's Marsh Foam Road or Lane or something. I mean, there is a ready-made access there, isn't there? Is that a land ownership issue, or the Pitsea bypass? There's actually a road coming over the level crossing, and then it actually comes to the northern part of this site, I believe.
To be honest, I was not aware that there was another access into the site. So
I wouldn't say it's
A13.
necessarily into the site, but there is an access there, and I'd be really interested to know how far away that road is. Does it then actually make that land accessible from that point?
I would guess if this road does connect up to near to where the site is, it's probably land ownership issues, because private road is it private road, or we're not sure?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously a point that I think really needs to be clarified for the committee. It could well be a purely land ownership issue, and you cannot just gain access to this site from that road. I'm just really exploring other avenues to actually take construction traffic off of the high road. So, I mean, I'd be really interested to find out about that.
Thank you, Chair. As far as I'm aware, one of the accesses that goes across the level crossing of the A13 goes into a farm. Whether that farm's got any association with this particular site here, I'm not sure. It's something that potentially could be, I guess, we could go back to the applicant and ask whether that's possible. The other one, as far as I'm aware, goes into a truck yard or a industrial area of some sort. And again, I'm not sure. They're quite this site is quite a distance from the level crossing and the sites. And so whether there's a reasonable form of access across there, I'm not sure. If somebody could be checked, but I would have thought if they would have looked at the appropriate route of access, and if they would have taken the shortest route rather than the potentially the longest route, because obviously coming in and out via Fobbing is obviously you've got the level crossing. The level crossing is probably worse at Fobbing High Road than it is at the others. It's more level at the other two crossings. I would have thought if it was the shorter route, they'd have taken the shorter route in terms of access because of construction needs. So, as Lucy said, you know, this is with it maybe that those are not within the red line boundary of the site. So, this is the logical access. I don't disagree with you in terms of the traffic, but it's not a significant amount of traffic that's going to be going in and out the site over the period it is, but it's not hundreds of vehicles.
Yeah, okay, thank you. But Chair, I mean, I'd really like to take this into consideration, actually, maybe as a discussion point for the future. I mean, I think it's worth investigating. Construction traffic is construction traffic, and this is a village location, and I would like to explore that. And if it's not the subject of this committee, I think we need to include that possibly in another committee.
Yes, thanks, Chair. We would do with all applications. The difficulty, obviously, is the A13 is outside of Thurrock's control, is within Essex control. So, as I would think that probably the crossings are in Network Rail's control, and whatever roads within are either private or controlled by Essex in those respects. So obviously some liaison with Essex would be necessary, but as in with the Fen Lane solar farm, we try our best to keep construction traffic off inappropriate roads, but unfortunately, like Fen Lane, that is the logical, most direct route into the site. So I don't disagree with you, construction traffic in Fobbing, not very nice, but unfortunately, at the moment, there's construction traffic going into the waterworks site. It really doesn't come right into the village, but that road is capable of taking some form of construction traffic. We will, if it goes ahead, there will be monitoring and condition surveys have to be done to make sure that the road, if there are problems, then they will have to repair them. But I don't disagree with you. It's something potentially we can look at, but we normally, as we have done with Fen Lane, we look at the most logical route. You know, it would be inappropriate, for instance, to come through Lampett's Hill and through along the Fobbing Road and up White Line Hill, for instance. So.
Okay, I mean, thank you very much. Obviously, we can maybe discuss that further, but I think what this is actually kind of emphasising is this is a very, very, very big site. You know, and I think many of these aspects need to be taken in from, you know, from a much larger kind of viewpoint. And in actually, looking at the slides, I don't know if we could just get up about the viewpoints, and I think it was viewpoint 2. I mean, I've never sat on a committee with a solar farm before, so this is kind of fairly new territory for me, really. But I think you have got a slide there that shows. Yeah, I mean you really cannot see. You cannot see the actual. I don't think that's a very clear picture, and again, I think, you know, that's something that maybe needs to be seen.
Am I on the correct slide that you
No, I
wanted
think
to
there's
look
one
at?
prior to that. I think that's off of the high road. This one, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and is that from Marsh Farm Lane off of the A13? That one, is it?
This is off footpath 14.
Yeah. Well, either way, I mean, I don't think they really give us a good representation of actually how these solar panels will look in reality. I mean, I tend to think they're going to be far more visible than what they are. But again, maybe we'll leave that for discussion later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And takes us on to Councillor Polly, Shinnick, then Carter, and then Mays. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I support Councillor Arnold's concern, knowing the problems we've got in Fen Lane at the moment with the construction, traffic and road closures. I also have a concern with the 49.9 again. These sites are huge, and I'm sure if we collectively patchworked them together now in Thurrock, we have got development of national significance. The fact that we are going cross-boundary with the power connection would also, as we saw from the drawings, we've got red lines that actually cross borders, and then we will have no control over that planning authority or their committee if this should be enlarged in any way. So I really to lose that amount of land again to another solar farm, I just wonder, how can we actually control the 49.9? We don't know. It seems blatant to me that they're putting a figure in a report, but there's no way of measuring that. We'll never know whether the actual wattage of that site is 49.9. So I don't know if the officers got any advice on for me how we would monitor that, how we would know that it was within its guidelines. The other thing that I also had a question on was the disbandment. I mean, it says a temporary permission, but a temporary permission for 40 years. And some of the wording in there I find complex, and perhaps it's just the language used, but it says about 40 years from when there is first outage from the site, and then that output should cease 40 years from that date. Well, it's a massive site, as we've all said. We're quoting 200 football pitches here. You know, when is that the first date from when it's fully operational, from the first panel? That's very vague in mine. And then it says about it shall cease at 40 years from that date. And it also says that it will be disbanded and removed at 40 years. So, I mean, do we have any idea how long the construction of a site of this size will take? Because it must take the same length of time to to remove it. I just find the wording in that paragraph rather confusing. So, yeah, question is about the 49.9 and the temporary permission. Thank you.
Okay, so there's quite a lot there, so I'll try and answer, and if I miss anything out, then by all means, ask me again, Councillor Polly. So the 49.9, and it is just below the DCO threshold, so, and it's not uncommon. A lot of companies are putting in these applications all over the country now, and it is to get a quicker turnaround because it's a commercial enterprise. But with the kind of energy market, they have to like bid for a space to be able to generate energy to the national grid. So I think the 49.9 is constricted by that, because you have to kind of pay more money to be able to produce more electricity. If that makes any sense? No. To be allowed the like cable access.
Thank you, Chair. If it helps, typically the size of the development being brought forward, so the number of panels would have a maximum output in terms of its wattage. So you'd find that the size of the development being put forward is intentionally capped below the DCO threshold because of the amount of panels that are there and the maximum output that will generate as a scheme. So if you added another field to that, for instance, you'd probably find another field of PVs, you'd probably find that the maximum generation capable of that would probably go northwards of the 50 megawatt, if that helps.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just come back on that. And as we heard with the previous application for Wolf Road, technology moves on. So we're looking at the capacity of the PV cells at the moment. There's nothing to say within a 3-year period that technology will have improved and that those photocells are actually producing more wattage than the current ones would be capable of. Am I correct?
Through you, Chair. So if a consent was granted, it would typically be implementable for 3 years. If the scheme is implemented, it would have the technology which is set out in this application. If that technology changed like the last application and it went above that, then the applicant would need to come back and either to vary the terms of the condition, or if it was so far north, then it would need to go through a different consenting regime.
Thank you, that was helpful.
Okay, so I think Lee's just answered. You said about the cross-boundary nature of the application and what would stop kind of it being added to across another authority's jurisdiction area. And it's the same. It would be the development as a whole. If it exceeded 50 megawatts of generating capacity, then that would also kind of need to come back and need to go to the national DCO. And the condition, so the first commercial export of energy is as it kind of reads. So the first energy which goes to the substation, and the applicant or the developer would need to give written notice so no more than 1 week before this, and then that would be logged. And then oh yeah, thank you, Jonathan. So the construction period. Oh yeah. So yeah. Sorry, the construction period is 30 weeks. So in terms of the decommissioning, and it could well be quicker because it would be less kind of taking things up rather than connecting electrical.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Lucy. All right, so that then takes us on to Councillor Shinnick.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just clarify for me how many letters of objection you've received?
Okay, so in total there was 43 comments received. 41 of those were in objection and 2 were in support.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at 4.13, highways, that there was no objections. I know the high road quite well, and it has got a bit of a history with potholes. It was included in jet patching last year, but these haven't lasted. So I've seen how heavy are the construction vehicles that are going to be coming through here, because I could imagine they could do significant damage to the roads.
Thank you, Chair. As I pointed out a bit earlier, a condition survey will be part of the works prior to construction, so they won't have to monitor the condition of the roadway. If we consider that it's deteriorated sufficiently from its current condition, then they will have to repair it. That will be part of the conditions as their works. There'll probably be the normal HGV size articulated lorries in general in the main. So probably with, I don't know how much earth removal or whatever there might be, but there might be some tipper trucks to do some earth shunting or whatever it is. I don't know, depending whether they're going to do any levelling, but I would think most of the solar panels and the containers will all come on the normal articulated type lorries. We've done all the swept parts and checked on all those. The access arrangements have been amended. There will be a new access onto the amended access onto the site to enable larger vehicles to get on.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a few more names here. So first of all, I'll go to Councillor Mays, then Watson, Arnold and Tandy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It is a big site, as I think everybody can see, and there's going to be a hell of a lot of 3-metre high solar panels on tracks moving to where the sun goes. I can't see any in relation to sort of sound levels of that and what the effect is that will have to residents, because at the moment obviously it's a tranquil place, and then suddenly you're going to have probably many thousands of solar panels moving around all day. I can't see anywhere on this it says about noise or noise that people could expect, because that will travel as well, being in the middle of that area. So is there sort of an idea of how loud that would be? Even if it's a light humming during the day, it would still be good to know that one.
So with the application, obviously consulted our environmental health team, so they did not have any concerns regarding noise from solar panels.
Okay, thank you. That then takes us back to Councillor Watson, then Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Lucy, in the report, on this site, there's contaminated land because it was once a landfill. What proportion of that landfill, of that site is landfilled, was landfilled and is contaminated, and whereabouts is it within those fields?
Okay, so with this site and a neighbouring site that I've had a planning application on, it was previously landfill, but as with these things, sometimes it wasn't, there's not clear records anywhere. No one's got clear records of exactly where the contamination is. So I think there is a watching brief. So at the moment, no one, literally no one, the Environment Agency, Environmental Health, aren't sure exactly where the contamination is or how much of the site is contaminated. So there's a condition that if any is found in the construction stage, that work must stop, and then there'd be a risk assessment. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It was landfill, sorry, I can't recall.
Okay, thank you. Right, that then takes us on to Councillor Arnold, then Tandy, then Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, still sort of dealing in my head with the enormity of this site, actually, but I'm sure we'll come back to that. My main concern, really, at the minute is this heavy goods vehicles coming up the road. Is it normal in an application like this, or can it be made a condition that any vehicles travelling up the high road cannot go past that access point, or can there be restrictions put in place as part of the planning agreements that is not possible?
Yeah, with any application in terms of these type of things, there'll be a construction environmental management plan. Within that will be a lorry routing strategy. That will be an agreed strategy. The lorry routing is from the access down to the 5 bells, or if they're coming from the 5 bells to the access and no further. They're not allowed through any other routes other than that. The 5 bells at A13 to the site, basically.
Can I just ask how that's actually enforced on a day-to-day basis?
Well, ultimately, we can't be out there every day, but obviously if residents notice large vehicles, that would be then down to report to the planning department, who would then look at the enforcement of that action. But one would hope that the contractor would follow its construction environmental plan. The other route, it'd be difficult to see a lorry. The sensible route, if they're coming down the A13, is to come off at the 5 bells and come across the level crossing, and that way. I mean, otherwise, you'd either be going down to the Manaway to come off through the Manaway and then potentially Gifford's Cross, and that way. The logical route, even if you probably Googled it, would be that it would send you that route, because that's probably the quickest route to the site.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that is a logical route, but I can tell you from experience that heavy goods vehicles do travel further up the road for maybe any number of other reasons, to be fair. And I'm really quite keen to actually make sure that vehicles cannot travel up the road. And Chair, I've got a special question. I don't know if it's an unusual question, if I could just pose that. The surface area of the solar panels, I mean, it's huge. Has the question ever been asked, really, because we've got extremely large warehousing and building not very far away from there. Has that ever been posed, this question, that why don't we have solar panels fixed to roofs of these gigantic buildings that are down on the industrial park, DP World, etc.? Has it ever been considered as an alternative to something like this? It's just a general question.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Arnold. A lot of large commercial units do have solar panels. I think the kind of getting it on the roof and the space element is an issue, and also ownership and leases and things like that. But we'd always encourage any like large warehouse, like a Bluelands quarry, if you know that, like that's got solar. Oh, it's got solar panels all over it, and I know, yeah, DP World, and so it is kind of in addition to proposals such as this one.
Okay, I mean, I was just curious because obviously if new buildings come along, they've not actually been built yet. If actually that then is made, you know, maybe a condition of the construction of that building. And I would slightly disagree with you, actually. I think probably when buildings like that are being constructed, it's probably the easiest way of doing it, to be fair. But again, that's the point of another discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tandy.
Yeah, thank you. Is it necessary for National Grid to build these? Is it due to more houses being built, population growing?
Thank you. The application isn't from National Grid, so it's from a different energy company. And there's, within the national planning policies, there is a presumption that if you're putting in an application which is an energy application, energy creation, or like the first application, energy storage, then you don't need to prove the need for energy because there kind of is an energy crisis and we need to produce more energy, kind of full stop. Does that answer what you were asking? Or?
Yeah, that's kind of.
Okay, thank you. Steve Taylor, did you have your hand up? Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Sorry, Lucy, it's just one thing I meant to ask. You know the photo montages that are obviously computer generated? This might sound stupid, but are they with the panels horizontal or are they with the panels raised? Because that makes quite a lot of difference in terms of the visual impact.
Sorry, they are. Can we go back, Kenna, to. So I would say, I'm not 100% sure, but from this, that is definitely kind of the 3 metre, so the panels raised.
Yeah, it's difficult to see, isn't it? I'm just
yeah.
thinking if I was putting this in, I would do it with them horizontal just because it has less of an impact. But I just wondered if you knew. But obviously not. Thanks anyway. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for those questions. We do have 3 statements here this evening on this particular item. I'd like to invite the first statement, which is a statement of objection from the local ward councillor, that's Councillor Deborah Arnold. And Deborah, if you'd like to come down, and you have 3 minutes to present your statement.
Thank you. I'm supporting residents in their objection to this solar farm. Fobbing is a village of heritage and outstanding beauty, unique marshes with RSPB bowers to one side and Essex Wildlife Trust to the other, and public footpaths whereby many enjoy being able to walk through farmland and landscapes not much changed over hundreds of years. National planning framework says ensure substantial weight is given to any harm to Greenbelt. But when laws use subjective language like substantial, how do you define special? It's argued a solar farm is special given the need to stop using fossil fuels. But just how special is a solar farm of this size? There are much larger green energy initiatives at the port. The landowner has done much to mitigate concerns, but is it enough? Having walked some of the land with him, he is to be applauded for his personal investment and vision for biodiversity that he's encouraging on the marshland, the organic farming and ethically working with nature, not against it. Here is a farmer wanting to work with the village, not against it. The solar farm makes the biodiversity farming strategy more financially stable, footprint reduced to protect the birds, whips planted to obscure panels. Panels, we're told, that won't impact on views or cause an issue with glare. If they will, then please don't use whips taking 15 years to mature. Invest in mature trees to mitigate glare. When vehicles will enter and exit is of great concern, and I understand will be in Fobbing High Road up further than the rail track. Have the level crossing concerns been mitigated by British Rail? And we're worried vehicles miss the entrance, speed up the road, getting stuck at the top and having to turn round again. Planning is of a mind to recommend this application. The energy company and planning understand the laws and special circumstances of solar farms at this size, potentially making it difficult for any planning objections to be upheld in law through an appeal system. And then a lengthy appeal system does nothing for residents and it does nothing for the farmer. I feel it's much better to get the answer right the first time, and for this reason, I would respectfully ask the committee to do a site visit and walk the land, see what is at risk, and ask your questions and determine for yourselves with officers if the objections raised will hold up legally. I walked the land and thought this could be far enough away not to ruin the views from the high road and not affect the wildlife, but I didn't factor in the weather station or the substations at nearly 12 foot high and 35 foot long. It's hard to visualise from plans just how it will be affected, and an artist's impression would maybe help residents engage with the process, and an open day to meet and talk with the farmer and the energy company I feel would be good. If after a site visit you cannot find unlawful reasons to uphold our objections, I would ask for caveats to be considered, like mature planting at the sections where glare may be an issue. Enter the site, maybe if you can, by the A13. LED speeding and signage to stop HD vehicles going too far by mistake. A point of contact for residents to deal with concerns during works. And a real proper joins up 106 monies to need in Fobbing, like highway improvements, repairs, bus subsidy for health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that speaker statement. Okay, so with that, we'll then go on to our second speaker statement, which is a statement of objection from an Anthony Davis, I understand is a resident in the area. Anthony, if you'd like to come down, you have 3 minutes in which to present your arguments. Thank you.
Yes, Anthony Davis. I'm a resident of High Road, Fobbing, for 41 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Fobbing and the marshes are inexplicably linked. Fobbing without the marsh is not Fobbing. The two have grown together through the centuries. Their stories are intertwined. To build such a solar farm structure, nearly half mile and a half in length, in fields parallel to the high road, all 134 hectares, 331 acres, 165 football pitches of it, glass panels, steel, concrete, buried cables, would desecrate the marsh of possibly the next 40 years and rip apart the special relationship between the marsh and the village. I, along with many residents, simply do not want to lose this visual source of peace, tranquility and habitat in this busy world. ENSO have mitigated all negative measures residents have thrown up, but they cannot mitigate the love we have for Fobbing by the people who have lived there and worked here since ancient times and who continue to do so today. The deep pleasure one feels looking out over the marsh on a misty morning, the sheer panorama you see from the high road when in full sun and at dusk, the sights and sounds fill you with awe. At the magnificence of it all, one never gets tired of looking at it. There is a principle here which the Planning Committee must seriously consider, and it is stated in the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 148, and I quote, "When considering any planning applications, local planning authorities should ensure that substantial weight is given to any harm to the green belt. Very special circumstances will not exist unless the potential harm to the greenbelt by reason of inappropriateness and any other harm resulting from the proposal is clearly outweighed by other considerations. When considering any planning application, local planning authorities should ensure that substantial weight is given to any harm to the greenbelt. Very special circumstances will not exist unless the potential harm to the greenbelt by reason of the inappropriateness and any other harm resulting from the proposal is clearly outweighed by other considerations. End of quote. Can you honestly say that the relatively meagre output of 49.9 megawatts of this solar farm outweighs the destruction of the marsh for years to come? The construction over 40 weeks during the working week, plus Saturday morning, involves up to 2,000 separate HGV lorry movements along what was constructed as a country road. Not to mention a huge electrical cable would need to be ducted from the point of exit from the marsh onto the high road, under the crossing and onwards to Rochford. Added to this are the 168 homes Bellway development have now started. Please consider the traffic flow over the crossing with gates shutting frequently in the busy periods. Chaos and danger unbridled in the making. The HGVs will have to negotiate the blind double bend that will lie in wait for them after the crossing. To get an idea of this, try to remember what things were like at East Tilbury when Walsh's HGVs continuously thundered along Princess Margaret Avenue, a few feet away from the pedestrians. As a means of comparison, Intergen are proposing to develop and construct a 450 megawatt world-leading battery storage project at Corriton. And they continue to operate at Corriton an existing 800 megawatt gas-fired combined cycle power station, which is closely located. Why spoil our environment for so little return? Intergen have built these far enough away from residents to be unaffected, unlike this application, which amounts to only about 8% of the former, and which will affect us for the next 40 years. David Attenborough has recently spoken about the serious loss of wildlife in the UK. The RSPB and Natural England still have some concerns about this project. I urge you to reject this application.
Okay, thank you very much for that statement, sir. And this takes us on to the last statement for this particular item. It's a statement of support from a George Young, who's the applicant. George, if you'd like to come down, and you have 3 minutes in which to present your case. Thank you.
Hello, I am George Young, better known as Farming George. I live at Curtis Farm in the heart of Fobbing, and my family, the Youngs, have been the farmers in Fobbing since 1954, nearly 70 years. What really makes me tick is ecology. I am an agroecological farmer, someone who farms with nature at the heart of their farming system. It doesn't take much Googling to see what I'm about, and I wouldn't be happy to be so openly involved in a development scheme such as this if it tarnished the farming reputation that I've spent the past 10 years in cultivating. I see the scheme as a forward-thinking example of land use, with food, ecology, and energy as co-outputs. The land in question is, at its minimum, half a mile from the high road and can only be rarely glimpsed when walking or driving through Fobbing. It is also pretty terrible farmland. Having personally spent a number of years attempting to grow crops on these marshes, all requiring tons of polluting chemicals, I came to the conclusion that this land is only suitable for grazing. The area to be populated with solar panels is just 65 hectares of the 134 hectare total site area, less than half. And what really excites me is what is going to happen to the remaining 69 hectares under my stewardship if this scheme is approved today. I am already working on a pioneering biodiversity project separate to ENSO on 20 hectares of my land, some of which you can see on ENSO's plan. I call this a wild seam, an area which intersects my entire farm, providing a permanent habitat for nature. I am rewilding this area, managing it with cows specifically to aid in nature recovery. In just the first year of this management, I've already seen fantastic ecological wins, and I love how enthused the Essex Wildlife Trust and RSPB are about the gains that I have been making. But it has been hard enough to justify giving 20 hectares of the farm over to nature. So how amazing will it be for that type of rewilding management to roll out across a further 69 hectares? Nature works by connectivity, and that is precisely what will be provided here, doing a stonking job at connecting my wild seam through from the Thames estuary all the way across to the EWT and RSPB reserves and Wat Tyler Country Park. Ecology will see a massive uptick, and given that footpaths run right through these newly wilded areas, it will be incredible for any nature-loving ramblers. As a farmer, I also think a lot about food production. As stated previously, the land is poor and suitable only for grazing. You could never grow fruit or veg here. The funny thing is just how much solar panels enhance the land for grazing. I'll be keeping sheep in the paddocks under the panels. These panels provide shelter, improving animal welfare, whilst also mitigating temperature extremes, with research showing up to double the grass growth under the panels in times of drought. So, the presence of panels on the land doesn't actually reduce food production, instead potentially increasing it while substantially improving animal welfare at the same time. And I'll just briefly address the access issue as well. In terms of access from the north of the site via the A13, I do not own that farm, and the track you're talking about is not a road, it is just a simple farm track, nothing more than that. So obviously there's one thing I haven't spoken about, green energy. That is not my expertise, but powering over 16,000 homes while simultaneously producing high welfare lamb alongside a massive area dedicated to nature recovery, that all sounds pretty fantastic to me. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much for that statement. Okay then, are there any further questions? No, okay. So that then moves us on to the debate phase. Who would like to start this evening? Steve Taylor, thank you. Then Councillor Arnold.
Thanks, Chair. It's kind of ironic, I think, thinking about Thurrock and solar farms, given what's gone on over the last 2 or 3 years. But getting back to the sort of the more important point here, the thing that worries me, well, there's lots of things in this that worry me. The battery storage is a big issue, and everybody keeps saying it's safe. Well, it's been safe until it's caught fire, and there have been hundreds of very, very serious fires around the world, all based on battery storage. Batteries that are typically, although I don't know on this site, they're typically lithium ion. Lithium is one of the most filthy things to mine. It's mined generally by children in pretty poor countries around the world. Worse than the construction of them, the destruction of them is even worse. What do you do with a lithium ion battery? And no one's really got to grips with that problem yet. So there's a big issue around lithium ion. The sort of thermal runaway, as they call it, needs one single cell. No idea. That's better. It just needs one cell in a battery to start to get what they call thermal gain, i.e. if there's a fault in it. And as that accelerates, once it gets to about 60 degrees, in a container, bright sunshine, not hard, then you get to a point where you can't stop it. And the fire brigade can't stop it. It just burns out. It gives off some pretty awful gases, and those gases are very toxic. You're talking about this, as the farmer's just said, half a mile from residential houses. Is that a good move? I don't know. I'll let you guys think about that. Equally, yesterday, the government have announced that nuclear power is now green. So if you think about nuclear power stations and generating this volume of power, they're a lot smaller, a lot less intrusive, and frankly, we've had 70 years of understanding what to do with nuclear power, and it's only been a green lobby that has been very, very much against it. Since the government have now decided it's green, I question where solar farms are going to go in the future, given the amount of space they take up. Further than that, when we talk about PV cells, now I don't know the technology because I haven't worked with it for a few years, but it used to be about a 5-year to 7-year lifespan before the panels need replacing. So even if we assume that technology's moved forward a bit and it's now 10 years, that means over its lifetime, the build plan is going to be 4 times. And that's the construction traffic and removing the old cells. So the kind of 30 weeks, the minimum you can multiply that by is 4 over the next 40 years. And then at the end of the scheme, logically, they have to be removed again. So I think when you look at the timescales, the amount involved, the disruption that will continually happen over the next 40 years, it's a lot more than 30 weeks, being realistic about it. So I wonder if this isn't time for people to reassess, and especially with the government's announcement yesterday, perhaps solar farms are not the answer. We all know if you look at Lower Dunton Road, they're never ever pretty. And although that might enhance the land, and I understand that, and I'm very sympathetic towards that, the bottom line is it certainly doesn't enhance it visually for anybody that either walks on the marshes, on the footpaths, or drives past. So I think that's kind of, as quickly as I could, summed up my views and opinions. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thanks for that. Okay, so we're then going to go to Arnold, then Councillor Polly.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to throw something out there, and I hope it's not inappropriate at this stage. As I said before, as I alluded to before, this application is enormous, and obviously we've heard the Speaker's statement very passionately telling us how that would impact the village, etc., etc., etc. And I really do not feel comfortable making a decision on this tonight. I would much prefer to have a site visit. I need to see what this application means for the villagers, for the borough, for the residents. I need to be convinced and reassured that this application is a worthy application. I do not think that we can sit here in this committee room and reach a proper decision without actually seeing this firsthand. You know, I mean, and really having as long as we absolutely need to do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, strictly speaking, site visits you can ask from before the item or obviously during the debate phase. That's perfectly fine. Let me hear from a few other people, and then if other people are up for that, we'll look to go to a vote. Councillor Polly.
Thank you, Chair. This is another huge application, and we've understood from the questions that have been asked the rationale behind it, because it has to optimise the wattage output to be attractive to National Grid for them to then hook up. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Our own Landscape and Ecology Department have made a comment on this application saying that the Fobbing Conservation Area would not be preserved if we supported this application, and that is in contrary to section 72 of the planning and listed conservation area. So that is a concern when we've actually got comments from our own we've heard the residents speak passionately about the character of the village and what Tyler's mentioned, and I think we historically we have the peasants of Fobbing revolting going back in time, and I think they've raised their arms again against this solar farm. I've obviously got concerns in my questions. I wasn't happy with the one at Malvern. I can't say that I'm happy with these applications keep coming forward piecemeal like this, where we've got no control over them, and they're just covering acres and acres of Thurrock's greenbelt. So obviously there's other councillors to speak, but at the moment I'm not finding anything that encourages me to support this at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Polly. Going on to Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot of unknowns here that have come up throughout the debate. I think it was Councillor Watson who brought up just as an example of landfill sites, and that we didn't know what sort of landfill there were. This has gone up throughout questioning, throughout the debate. I couldn't tell, based on the pictures, if that was visually okay or not. It wasn't very easy to see, so I will be back in Councillor Arnold's call for a site visit. I did find what one of our speakers were saying was very. It was quite exciting, the idea of what could be done with that land as well. But I don't think I've got enough information at the minute to make a correct decision. So I agree with Councillor Arnold's call for a site visit.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to Councillor Mays, then Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think I share a lot of the concerns of others. The size, the 49.9, the view, or what we can see or can't see of the view. I think in itself, I think we need to, as a nation, embrace and get as much clean energy as we can. Personally, I wouldn't want a nuclear, I know you mentioned that, but I wouldn't want a nuclear power station in Fobbing. I'd much prefer to have solar panels, but I do think hearing what's being said, not actually standing here and seeing it, I think I'd be in the same mind that I don't think we've got enough at the moment to say that, and a lot of questions would remain unanswered because of that. So I'd be mindful to support Councillor Arnold's request for a site visit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I just feel a bit of deja vu's happening here, because in September, 21, planning, I was sitting here with the chair being chair, we were talking about Balfour, whose solar farm was just as big, and it is massive. Then we put through the Mardyke, and I just feel that we're turning into a solar farm borough right now because of the whole immenseness of this. This is a huge, huge site with very variables. Even though it does protect land that could potentially grow better in the future, personally, I don't like the idea of we're taking the brunt of all of the solar farm, and yet Basram's got a substation somewhere. Just like the one in September 21, where that was Havering, had all of that, and we had the massive farm. I can't support this. I don't support this. I don't like this size, and for the magnitude of this size, of how much greenbelt we will be losing, even though in 30, 40 or 50 years we might get it back better. The site going across, and also I have concerns around the storage facilities. And I have got concerns around the travel going backwards and forwards. And I'm sorry to the farmer, because I think you've done a really good, all of you as speakers, but I'm not going to support this, not on this magnitude. And I do support, if my colleagues, councillors want a site visit, that's absolutely fine. Me, this is not going to change my mind, so I won't be having the site visit. I'm just going to say no to this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So, were there any further comments before I sort of sum up and we head to, obviously there is a recommendation there for a site visit. No further comments at this stage? Okay, so, yeah, a lot of good questions there. For me, obviously, if we was to head down the site visit route, it does give us some time to look into some of the questions that were raised here this evening, which is an added benefit of a potential site visit. Having said that, to some members, if your mind's made up, then yeah, absolutely. You know, if you feel that this is not the sort of application we're going for, then by all means, yeah, don't feel pressured to go if that's the direction you're heading in. What I will do, obviously, we will head to that vote for a site visit, and if that is agreed, I'll just run through some bullet points with you, Lee, as to, I think, some outstanding questions there were from the committee members. So, Councillor Arnold, you've proposed a site visit. Is that seconded? Seconded by Councillor Carter. Okay, Ken, are you happy for us to go to a vote? Okay, so all those in favour of a site visit, please raise your hand. Yep, I think that was everyone apart from Councillor Watson. Yep.
Yeah, I did raise my hand. Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, close. Okay then, so with that has been agreed for a site visit. Lee and Lucy, and maybe Julian as well, obviously there were some bullet points raised. If we could just go through those, so when you do report back after the site visit, if they could be answered, that would be very helpful. Yep, you happy, Lee?
Yep, thank you, Chair. So just taking some notes during the questions and debate. So there was a concern around construction traffic and a request to explore alternative arrangements, concern about fire from batteries, so and in particular the response from the fire brigade, and maybe if we unpack condition 16 to explain what that means in a little bit more detail as well. Contaminated land, there's a question around how much, the type, etc. And I think if we can provide, if we can find the information, I think that'd be helpful. And the query around 49.9 megawatts, so some assurances over the control of the output. So those were the points that I took, Chair. If there's anything else I've missed or committee members wanted to add.
Yep, I've got that on my list to clarify.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Lee. So yeah, just going on some of those points there. So there was the potential location of the substation as well, just to see if that could be better positioned. I'm not sure how realistic that is, but nevertheless, there was a comment raised, and I do agree with it to some extent from Councillor Watson, that we have approved 2 large projects already in Thurrock. I think it's certainly fair to say that we are doing our part. Coming in on the local councillors' comments, there's some bullet points here, potentially asking, I think one was about more mature planting, so you would probably have better coverage at an earlier date. There's some comments here about maybe LED speeding restrictions. One point also raised by Councillor, I think it was Councillor Arnold, was about a potential for Section 106 monies. Now, I know on the previous applications that we've approved in Thurrock, those communities have received some form of contribution. I think on this particular application, there's nothing. So it's just generally a question there. Is there something available? It seemed reasonable on the previous 2 applications. There was a question about the panels being raised. I must admit, in the photo, it looked like they were lowered. Having said that, we are going on the site visit. I don't know whether we could get clarity around what we was looking at there, or if they were raised or not. That's important because even on the site visit, we're not going to be able to see that. So I know there is a lot there, but I think we should acknowledge that any higher, then they would have to go down a very lengthy process, and whilst a delay may be frustrating, it is important that we take our time on this, and I'm not entirely sure if it's something that would be approved or rejected. So at least I think it's worth us taking our time. And then you did raise it. It was about the fire brigade, maybe some form of response. As Steve Taylor said, that concerns around these fires, and you mentioned obviously it does come under a form of planning safety standard, which I've got full confidence in, but I don't have too much information on. So again, I know it's a lot, but this is a lot of land we're talking about, and I think that's pretty much everything. Sorry, Jonathan, thank you.
Just one quick point that, Councillor Watson raised, and you've picked up about the number of solar farms that we've got, and almost that we're taking more than we should. I sit on a group of Essex Planning Authority officers, and they've seen an upturn in sort of applications for these over the last couple of years as well, and particularly Chelmsford have had a number of these. So it's not that everyone's sort of dumping them on Thurrock. It's a sort of Essex-wide thing, and I think it's like a lot of things. It depends on what the government policy is at the time, and obviously when these applications come in, there's sort of promotion from government for these types of energy sources. So it's just be assured it's not everybody coming to Thurrock to do it to Thurrock. It's a wider thing. So if that sets your mind at rest in any way.
Okay, thank you. And one last point, Kenna. Obviously, you will be sending out an email for a potential site visit date. Obviously, everyone's very busy, very busy schedules. If, you know, hopefully we can fit that on one date, but if not, if we could accommodate a split potentially, I do think that would be appropriate and very fair given people's work schedules. So even if it's 2 site visits split on separate days, that's certainly something I think we should look into. Okay, Councillor Carter, one last point.
Sorry, I don't know if this was mentioned in that just then. I would like to know, as Councillor Watson raised earlier, what type of more details about the contaminated land, please. Yeah, I'm sorry if that was raised, I missed that.
And sorry again, it was just as Adam raised his hand there, Steve Taylor raised about the potential of these panels being replaced in a certain time. It's an important point. I mean, if they're going to be replaced every 5 years, then we're going to have a problem every 5 years. So let's just find out what the length is. That's everything, I think. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. With that, we'll... Steve, sorry, do you have one point?
Sorry, Chair, and I know this is totally the wrong way around, but just one question that I meant to ask earlier of Lucy. I know the balanced, I understand the sort of so-called balanced scorecard, call it what you will, around harm to the green belt and what outweighs it. What I have no concept of at all is what transmission versus distribution connection means. It's meaningless to me. So I'd kind of, if you could possibly come back to me and try and define what the hell that means, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we'd put it in the update report, Steve, definitely.
Thanks, Lucy. Sorry, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions there. So that is Lowndes South of Marsh Farm, Fobbing, application reference 21/01635/FUL. That will be subject to a site visit, and one would imagine if that can be accommodated in the next couple of weeks, we'd probably see this application back on the 6th of April. Okay? Not guaranteed, but probable. All right, then, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that. Yeah, that's the one. All right, so that then takes us on to our last item of the evening, which is land at former library and public hall, Purfleet Road, Averley, agenda item 10. Lucy, if you'd be so kind as to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is for the construction of 16 1- and 2-bedroom affordable apartments in 2 buildings, a 2-storey building fronting Purfleet Road and an L-shaped 2 and 3-storey building to the rear of the site with associated landscaping and parking. There has been an additional objection letter received since the report was published. This was from one of the same 4 objectors quoted in the report, and there were no additional matters raised. So the site here outlined in red, it's a reverse L shape and is 0.26 hectares in size. To the east is a petrol station which is on the corner between Purfleet Road and Mill Road. The northwest edge of the site adjoins the end of Manor Close South, its parking area and turning space. The closest 2 dwellings to the site are 7 and 47 Manor Close, so these 2 properties. The majority of the site is existing hard sanding and concrete slabs which remain from the previous library and hall buildings. There's a gentle slope from north to south with a ground level difference around 2 metres from the highest point in the northwest to the site entrance on Purfleet Road, which is here. So this is an aerial photograph, so you can see the site is situated fairly centrally here. This is obviously before the public hall and the library buildings they've now been demolished. So this was pre that. So this is the proposed site layout. So you can see the two buildings, the proposed landscape areas and the parking areas. This is elevation visual of the front elevation of the rear L-shaped block, which is facing into the site. So the block is part 2, part 3 story, as you can see. Design is of good quality and modern, with balconies which are built into the structure and generous sized windows. This is the rear block and the west facing elevation towards Manor Close South. This is the front block which faces onto Purfleet Road. This is a proposed floor plan of the rear block. And that's the proposed floor plan of the front block. And then here's some photos. So this is the site view from Purfleet Road. So this is showing the white hoarding, which is around the site now. So photo taken from in front of the petrol station. And in the background, you can see the top house pub. This is the site viewed from Manor Close South, facing east. So the site is behind there. So this is within the site, facing Manor Close South to the west. So this is the old public hall concrete slab. So the L-shaped building would be here to the rear of the site. And this is the view within the site facing towards Mill Lane to the northeast. And the final photo is the view within the site facing out towards Purfleet Road. So this red wall here is the petrol station. Okay, the proposal would develop a brownfield site to provide new homes which would be 100% affordable, which is welcomed. The site was previously a library and a public hall. These were at the end of their useful life and have been replaced by the new facilities at Aveley Hub. The proposal meets policies in terms of the design and layout, and there will be no unacceptable impacts to any neighbouring properties. Also, there'll be no unacceptable impacts in terms of highways, and the development will provide adequate off-street parking provision to serve the 16 flats. Additionally, with the shortfall within the council's 5-year housing supply, there's a national planning policy presumption in favour of residential development on sites such as this. Other matters of detail are also considered to be appropriate, subject to conditions, and the policy will comply with all relevant core strategy policies. So, to summarise, the proposal would develop a sustainable site for much needed housing, which is all affordable, and all other matters of detail are considered acceptable. So, to conclude, the recommendation is to approve with conditions the application for the reasons set out in paragraph 7.1 of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? No questions there. Councillor Watson.
Thanks. Can I just ask a quick question? On the, this is bordering straight onto the petrol station. Have we done any groundworks on there, see if there's any contamination coming from the petrol station?
I'll just check, because that's something that would come from the environmental health response. So so we've got a contaminated land officer in the environmental health team, and they haven't flagged up any concerns or any need for any watching brief, I don't think, on this.
I just would assume that if anything arises, then we will stop work. Because what I'm worried about is the pipe work for the water.
Yeah.
If it's contaminated land and you go through with water pipes, then it's going to contaminate the pipes around the water, isn't it? So I'm just a bit like, I'm just wondering if you've done any soil samples or anything yet. Lee? Would you have done any soil samples as yet?
No, I think as Lucy said, if during the construction, if there was any unforeseen contamination encountered, that then triggers a series of events that have to come into place to make sure that that is then investigated and mitigations put into place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to Councillor Tandy. Councillor Arnold, did you have your hand raised? Yep.
Yeah, just want to know if, obviously it's not going around any surrounding houses, how many objections, if there's any been?
Yeah, there was 4 objections received within the processing of the application, and an additional objection received, but it was from one of the, after the report was published, but it was from one of the original 4, but just a more detailed kind of response.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of, well, one immediate question for me is, can you tell me the distance between the new built property and the ones marked as number 7 and 47? Have you got an idea what the distance is from those two, or what will be the 2 properties?
I can measure it now for you, Councillor Arnold. Okay, so from the flank of the proposed rear block and the flank of 7 Manor Close South, that is around about 3.5 metres. And between the rear block, so where, number 47 Manor Close South, it's just over 2.5 metres.
Yeah, it just seems pretty close to me, actually. And I mean, obviously I can tell the footprint sort of resembles the original buildings that were on site. But the actual structures that are being proposed are significantly larger. And I mean, really, it's just a concern for me that they are so imposing on those neighbouring properties and really quite close, aren't they? It's just a point. I'll save that one for later.
Okay. The application came with a daylight and sunlight study to basically evidence that there wasn't an unacceptable impact to the nearest properties, which obviously are 7 and 47.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's just, for me, it's just kind of I mean, I would consider it as an overlooking issue there. I really would. I mean, 2-point-something metres, it's not very much, is it?
But it is not window to window, or because it's kind of flank to flank where there is no specific kind of distance guidance. So to make it a bit clearer, so from a kind of front or back window to a flank, you'd expect kind of a 12 metre distance, but these are
flank to flank.
Well, I'll meet you halfway on that, because I think from what I can see of the elevation drawing, if I'm assuming it's the correct one, on up to number 7, it is overlooking. But I mean, I'll stand to be corrected.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Julian, could I ask you a question? So, on this lovely map here, the bins are in the top left-hand corner here. Have we got enough turnaround point for an actual the waste disposal lorry to go in there if they're all full? If all of those parking spaces have cars in them, is there enough for them to go in, turn around and come back out again? Okay.
We have assessed it. The likelihood, knowing the size of our vehicles, they'll probably reverse in. They won't go in forwards anyway, more than likely. But we have assessed the bin collection and we don't have a problem with it. But as I said, it's likely in smaller cul-de-sacs that they tend to reverse in anyway because of the difficulties in manoeuvring in front forwards anyway. But there is sufficient there to get bin collection.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? Say if that was a fire engine, they won't be reversing anywhere.
No, but
so
the fire engine won't go in to turn round. It will go in, park, and then it will then turn round afterwards. The tracks have been done for fire vehicles and service vehicles. So, but a fire engine, there is plenty of width for a fire engine to go in, put its stabilisers out, and do whatever it needs to do. I'm not so sure that they'd be. It's not quite the when a fire engine visits the site. If it's in an emergency, it's not quite the same as if you're the dustbin lorry, because the dustbin lorry is going to go in, you can pick up the bins and go back out again. If a fire engine's going in, it's going to sit in there and then turn around and go out once it's finished doing whatever it's doing.
So my point is can that fire engine turn around with those cars, if all those parking spaces are used?
As I said, we've assessed the tracks. They've tracked for putting a fire vehicle and service access to be able to access the facility. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Tandy, do you have a second question?
Yeah. Could you just clarify when you say 100% affordable houses, will it be below market value or will it be for the first-time buyer or part-owned mortgage?
At present, no, can't confirm. So it could be any of those that you mentioned and any which fall within the definition of affordable housing within the National Planning Policy framework.
Okay, thank you. All right then, so we do have a statement here this evening. This is a statement of support from Sam Robinson, who's the applicant agent. If you'd like to come down, you've got 3 minutes in which to present your statement of support. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to speak in support of proposals at the Aveley Library and reinforce our approach to the development of this site. The site was previously used as a library and community hall, which were demolished in 2021 following construction of replacement facilities closer to the centre of Aveley. As a brownfield site close to local facilities and public transport links, it is considered very sustainable. The applicant, Thurrock Council, identified the site for affordable housing. We have engaged in extensive consultation on behalf of Thurrock, including design panel, public consultation and pre-application advice. The proposals consist of 2 blocks. A 2-storey building at the front of the site reinforces the street scene on Purfleet Road. The block at the rear of the site is formed as an L shape and has been planned to avoid impacts on neighbouring properties. The building is predominantly 2 storeys, addressing the west boundary towards the end of Manor Close and turning into the site to avoid overlooking rear gardens further south. It then rises to 3 storeys centrally within the site, creating good separation to the boundaries north and south. A daylight assessment has been carried out which demonstrates existing dwellings are not adversely impacted by proposals. A shared garden space is proposed to the south of the main building with existing trees retained for screening. A scheme of additional landscaping has been developed to provide amenity and ecology enhancements. Each of the 16 flats are dual aspect with large balconies providing residents with private outdoor space. Large windows and doors provide good daylighting while south-facing glazing is protected from summer sun by balconies and projections, helping to keep dwellings cool in the summer. Thurrock Council require high standards of sustainability and accessibility. Proposals have been developed to allow a high-performing thermal fabric and good air tightness. Roofs have been designed with south-facing pitches optimised for solar panels and on-site electricity generation. Pedestrian routes through the site are accessible and all dwellings have been designed to M42 standards. The scheme has been designed using 2 different bricks, with south-facing gable projections and simple brick and stone details to enhance the street scene and quality throughout the development. We have worked with a highways consultant to ensure the scheme meets current standards and integrates safely with the existing road and footpath. The existing access position has been retained, but entrance road into the site straightens. The existing parallel parking bays are to be removed, improving overall visibility and safety entering and exiting the site. Parking standards require 1 space per dwelling and 0.5 spaces for visitors, equating to 24. The proposed scheme provides 25 spaces, which exceeds the standard. The scheme provides 24 cycle spaces within secure enclosed stores for residents and 16 additional spaces for visitors, promoting sustainable travel. In conclusion, the proposed scheme provides 16 new dwellings for affordable rent on a brownfield sustainable site. The scheme has been developed through consultation with planning officers and with regard to adjacent neighbours to create high quality, sustainable homes for local people. Could I just add that we have worked with a fire consultant as well, so the scheme has been designed to ensure that fire access is provided to all parts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that statement. Okay, so based on that speaker statement, are there any further questions? No? Okay, let's move on to debate. Who would like to start this evening debating this item? No? No further comments to add? No, nothing? Okay then, so obviously, look, it is an impressive scheme. I think obviously, rightfully, there are a few concerns there. Yep, cool. I think it's obviously quite an impressive scheme. There are some concerns there, but I do think they have been mitigated by the officers, and it is important to note that that this is a 100% affordable scheme. So, for me, I think that the officer recommendation is sound. I'll go over to Councillor Watson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at this application, I'm in support of it, to be honest. It's on a brownfield site. It's not being used currently at the moment. I have got slight worries about the decontamination from next door, but I'm pretty sure that as time goes on and all the surveys are completed, that will come through whether or not we need to do anything about that. I'm going to support this application because at the moment it's just boarded up and it looks a bit of an eyesore, to be frank with you. I like the fact that it is 100% affordable. I would have liked social housing in there, or affordability lower than 70%, and some shared ownership. But I will support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further comments, we'll head to the recommendation. There is a recommendation 8.0 found on pages 113. That's to approve. That is recommended by Councillor Watson. Is that seconded? Councillor Shinnick. Kenny, you happy for us to go to the votes? Yeah, okay, so all those in favour of agenda item 10, please raise your hand. Brilliant. Okay, and that's unanimous across the committee. All right, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attendance here this evening. That is now the end of the planning committee today, and I look forward to seeing you on the 6th of April. Thank you very much.